Hello everyone, welcome to Global Government News. Today's Friday, September 21st, 2012. I'm Darko. I hope you're enjoying your day in hell today, as you feel that you have no power over anything and you just sit there and watch this madness go by another day after another day. And unfortunately, there's nothing you can really do about it. You can't just pound or beat your fellow slave in the head until they get it, because they are the ones that are preventing this change from occurring. They think that they're going to go with guns and topple the embassies or topple the governments and restore the republic. But really the enemy is just like in the Matrix. It's right around you. It's all these people, the old women, teachers, policemen, some dude shoveling shit. That still believes in the system, that will still go out and vote for their next slave master in the next month. I'm going to cover the Middle East in this first video and probably the second video, and I want to get into the economy, so hopefully I get into it in the third video. U.S. to remove Iranian group from terror list, officials say. They're talking about the MEK, and talking about the enemies all around you. Yeah, they're called useful idiots. Useful idiots. And here they were back in 2011, putting up all of these women and stuff like that as victims, right? Because they themselves have not been victimized, right? So hundreds of people rallied back in 2011 in front of the White House, demanding that the Iranian opposition group, the Mujahideen, MEK, once allied with Iraq's Saddam Hussein, be removed from the U.S. terror list. So this was a democratic grassroots thing, right, that happened. No, well, see, the United States, they used Saddam Hussein before, armed him with weapons that carried out, an 8-year war against the Iranian people, gassing them, killing them, bringing holy hell on them. And then they turned to the Kurds, of course, and started killing them as well. And then they realized that maybe it's not so good to have such a cozy, cushy relationship with Saddam Hussein anymore. The State Department has decided to remove the Iranian exile group from the U.S. terrorist list, officials said Friday, ending a decade-long fight over a controversial organization that has become a favorite cause of prominent U.S. politicians and lobbyists. So this MEK was fiercely opposed to Iran's clerical regime. They're talking about any regime that is not instilled by the CIA or the West, like the Shah, that was then, of course, overthrown by the Iranian people. So get the fuck out. Seymour Hersh, U.S. funded and trained on U.S. soil, Iranian group on State Department terror list. So while they were on the terror list, Seymour Hersh, a venerable investigative journalist, dropped another bombshell in New Yorker. April 2012, the U.S. military trained members of the Iranian terrorist group in Nevada in 2005. So what's more, American intelligence continues to be transferred to the Mujahideen for operations that include assassinations of Iranian nuclear scientists, of course aided by Zionist Israel. So the report says that during the Bush regime, the Joint Special Operations Command and Elite Special Operation Forces transferred funds, arms, and intelligence to the MEK. While this type of covert activity is standard practice for the U.S. see Iran-Contra, what makes this revelation shocking is that the MEK is still on the U.S. terror list. Oh, well, they're not anymore. So they change reality. They change reality. So if enough dumbass pieces of shit out there believe the lie, then it becomes reality for them. So now, the U.S. wasn't supporting terrorism. They're no longer on the terror list. Okay. Iran slams Israel's nuke program. Israel says Tehran's biggest Mideast threat. So Israel accused its archenemy, Iran, on Thursday of being the biggest threat to the Middle East, as the Jewish state sought to deflect pressure at the UN meeting over its own undeclared possession of nuclear weapons. So Iran says Israel's undeclared atomic arsenal is the most serious threat, a view that is shared by Arab nations. Israel is widely believed to have developed nuclear weapons in the late 1960s, although the Jewish state has never publicly acknowledged them. Well, they don't have to, right? They don't have to answer to anybody. Syria accuses West of double standards over Israel. At a major UN meeting, Syrian embassy seeks to turn the tables on Damascus accusers by hitting out at Israel, saying influential Western states are implicitly condoning Israeli atomic arsenals. Israel also made clear its view that the volatile region was not yet ready for creating a zone free of such weaponry, i.e. without nuclear weapons, which Arab states have been pushing for. Meanwhile, the U.S. is spending at least $350 billion on nuke upgrades that they don't really need. They may be cash poor as the recession continues, but that doesn't stop the Obama regime from continuing to spend with a new scheme to spend hundreds of billions of dollars on thousands of nuclear weapons they don't need. So figure could go higher and most expensive overhaul ever. Canada and the UAE signed nuclear agreement in Ottawa. Just recently they said Jordan's nuclear program does not pose a threat either. That's because they're on the west side. So as the hypocrisy continues here and your head is spinning from the lies and disinformation, we have Iran attacked at UN Security Council over Syria aid. So Western members of the United Nations Security Council blasted Iran on Thursday for providing Syrian president with weapons to help him crush an 18-month-long uprising. Well, it's not an uprising, it's an intrusion, it's an invasion by terrorists that are armed by the United States, UK, Israel, well known publicly. In fact, most of the journalists and people, civilians that have been killed in the crossfire because of these mercenaries and terrorists, Al-Qaeda, that is being backed by the West. In fact, the United Nations twice had to leave Syria because every time they kept having to run to this murderous Assad regime for protection against the Al-Qaeda terrorists that are being supported by the United States. In fact, Ban Ki-moon even said Western states need to stop supplying arms to the mercenary terrorist rebels. But apparently just within the 24-hour, 48-hour period, the UN just forgot what it actually said. But that's what it is, like I said, for the useful idiots out there who believe in the lies and love this false reality. For them, it's not a big deal because they can't remember what happened yesterday. They just want to get constant updates of bullshit news that is completely fabricated shit. Shit sealed in a box with a ribbon. And, hey, it's Americans and people around the world just eat it up with a silver spoon. So foreign fighters, extremists, increasingly appearing on front lines in Syria's civil war. The bearded gunmen who surrounded the car full of foreign journalists in a northern city village were clearly not Syrians. A heavyset man in a brown gown stepped forward and announced that he was an Iraqi and fingered through the American passport he had confiscated. "We know all American journalists are spies, and now tell us what you are doing here and what you are spying for," he said in English, before going to accuse the U.S. of destruction of Iraq and Afghanistan. "I really want to cut off your head right now," he added, telling his men, many of whom appeared to have North African accents. And for whatever it's worth, when you go down in this Washington Post article, they start to water it down by saying, well, Al-Qaeda is a very small minority, and most of us, we kind of just sprung from the Arab Spring that was engineered by the Western-backed intelligence agencies, provocateuring color revolutions to get a regime change to someone that is not anti-Zionist like Assad. So they were ordinary citizens, right? They were soldiers who had defected, who had gotten paid $20 million, I think the figure was for some of them that got defected. Because, it was all about ideology. It wasn't about getting paid $20 million or getting paid like in Egypt to protest outside the embassy. The fact that, the protest thing was actually, the protest while it was happening here was actually quite peaceful. Most of them that were Syrians, there was a lot of them out there, thousands, that were out there actually protesting for Assad, actually for support. So yeah, the rebels are trying to downplay or play down their influence for fear of alienating Western support because they're getting support from the West. But the fact is there is so many different regimes or dictatorships that are propped up and supported by the West, armed by the West, that are killing and basically starving and using their people as political pawns, right? Just let them get blown up and stuff like that. And the West supports this. State Department, the CIA, MI6, Mossad, and they're behind most of it, and they allow it to happen. And then they come into certain places like this and declare a humanitarian crisis, while at the same time supporting like Pol Pot and Khmer Rouge. And then, after they killed a bunch of people and they supported all that, what do? Well, you know what? Oh, yeah, see, he's not fit for trial, right? So yeah, the Syria's rebel Free Syrian Army downplays extremist fighters. Maybe 500 jihadists in Aleppo, the commander claims. So the slain ambassador in Libya, Stevens, said he was on Al-Qaeda's list. The kill list, like Obama has for certain people that he drone bombs. I think Putin calls that bomb democracy. So consulate attack in Libya was coordinated. So this is from September 13th, the attack in Libya was coordinated. Then from September 20th, 2012, U.S. official says Libya attack was not planned in advance. So it was coordinated. It wasn't planned, and it was a terrorist act. Terrorists that, again, were supported by NATO, France, and all the other usual suspects that actually killed the ambassador. Same people are supporting Syria, same people in Libya. And the beat goes on. Al-Qaeda, Taliban created by the U.S. and UK. So thugs and killers don't represent Benghazi nor Islam. Al-Qaeda and the Taliban are a creation of the United States and Britain used as a weapon of choice against enemies, British MP George Galloway says. He added, not only did we create these people in the first place, but we have reached for them as a weapon of choice to deploy against our enemies. Our enemies? My enemies? No, we don't have a choice, remember? Talking about the global complex. Taliban destroy 13 NATO fuel tankers in southern Afghanistan. Well, we know what? We know that the Taliban was created by the U.S., like Al-Qaeda. So Taliban destroyed 13 NATO fuel tankers. Why would they do that? They're on our sides. Well, they're not paying, right? It's all business. How the U.S. Army protects its trucks? By paying the Taliban. That's right. The U.S. spends millions of your hard-earned tax dollars that it can't even afford to help veterans come back, in Afghanistan to ensure its supply convoys get through. And it's the Taliban who profit. Syrian regime attacks schools and tortures kids. Meanwhile, Iran allegedly used Iraqi airspace to send weapons to Assad. The latest propaganda from CNN. So it's really no surprise that the U.S. distrust in media hits a record high. So actually, 60% respondents said they do not trust the mass media very much at all. And why? Because, well, Syrian regime attacks schools and tortures kids. Yet you have stuff like this. What? Human Rights Watch, Syrian rebels guilty of torture and murder. U.S., UK, NATO, Saudi, Israeli-backed terrorists carrying out the campaign of systematic atrocities in Syria have finally been acknowledged and reported on by Human Rights Watch, who was for nearly 2 years intentionally portrayed the conflicts as one-sided violence carried out by the Syrian government alone. So the Human Rights Watch also acknowledged that those carrying out the atrocities are indeed the same groups being financed and armed by the Western nations and, quote, urged countries assisting opposition groups to condemn publicly the human rights and humanitarian law abuses by those groups. An exclusive. Iranian hackers target Bank of America and JP Morgan City. So, latest propaganda that they're ramping up against Iran. Most of the people in the comment boards say, well, you know, if you're using Bank of America, then you probably deserve it. And also, while you're at it, Iran, can you delete our mortgage? Iran woman beats cleric who told her to cover up, so he's hospitalized for 3 days. He goes on and says that en route to a local mosque, an Iranian cleric saw a woman he believed was inappropriately dressed, so he wanted her to cover up. She replied by saying, "You cover your eyes." Instead, putting her dukes up and giving him a shove, he fell back on his floor. He says, "I don't know what happened after that. All I could feel was the kicks on the woman who was insulting me and attacking me." So he's hospitalized for 3 days, saying it was the worst day of his life. So most of the people in the comment board saying, "Ooh, that was brilliant. Atta girl. You're a role model for American women. Kick him harder next time so he won't complain." So these are people coming from the West that don't live in that country. This is what I talk about, political subversion. When you have ignorant people who don't understand other cultures, who don't understand that multiculturalism is being imported into their country to destroy them, so they have no culture. Iranian militias pose threat to the United States, so you guys better go hide under your beds and lock and load, because the Iranian militias are coming to the United States to scoop you out of bed and kill you because you're so fucking free. While at it, maybe we'll just storm Washington, restore the Republic too. Goddamn towelheads. Muslim women beaten with walking stick and brutal exorcism by husband and family were convinced she was possessed by a demon. So just another story, right? So what we're looking at is what? A Western attempt to trigger clash of civilization. So Al-Qaeda and Islamophobic bigots working in tandem, exploiting fear and ignorance. This is where we will continue in part 2. And I'll read this paragraph and we'll leave it at that. In France, where people are sent to jail for Holocaust denial, considered by law a religious hate crime, it seems strange that the well-timed, raunchy cartoons designed solely to insult and inflame hate against and amongst Muslims worldwide would be defended vigorously by French politicians who claim, according to the Christian Science Monitor, that freedom of press should not be infringed. So there's the hypocrisy again. What about the Muslim women that want to wear the hijabs and that in France? Oh, that was actually banned, so freedom of culture, nope, sorry. That type of multiculturalism just doesn't work for us.